here Dr. Ragui ASSAAD from Humphrey School, and he is usually doing a lot of research in Egypt. He's a chronicle researcher there, and he is on the top of what's going on in Egypt now. Dr. Ragui ASSAAD, Morsi came like a year and a half ago or some sort, and after a lot of turmoil and a lot of people say the first elected Egyptian president or whatever, but he came with a lot of package, a lot of issues. He really fully established himself as a legitimate president, and so since he came to the have you. So tell us a little bit about the June 30's Mutamarridin. And who are they? What are the Mutamarridin for? What are what are their goals? What are they trying to do? Is this another 1 million aspirations? Cocky, liberal, just got too confident, and every time they don't like anybody, they just march to the Tahrir Square.
The 1 year anniversary to the election of President Morsi. And so to celebrate his anniversary, a group of young people called the Tamarod movement decided to start a petition campaign to recall the president, basically to do a no confidence vote in the president. Everybody thought that they will collect a few hundred signatures or a few thousand signatures. And it seems that they have tapped into a really raw nerve with the Egyptian people, because so far they have at least 15 million signatures and going strong. This is a group of young people whom nobody had heard about before. Some of them were involved in the Kafaya movement. Some of them were involved in Tahrir Square in the revolution, but these were not people from political parties. It was only later on that most of the opposition political parties jumped on the bandwagon and decided to support the Tamarod movement. So right now they are calling for huge protests on the 30th of June. And it looks like the expectation is that there are going to be several million people in the streets. This is the biggest protest. The expectation is that it's going to be the biggest protest since the 11 days of the revolution. What they're calling for is for President Morsi to resign and for there to be early presidential elections. So they would like a kind of a transition period in which there is going to be a civilian government headed by the head of the Supreme Constitutional Court to prepare for elections, and to be organized early elections. And the reason they're giving is basically that he has basically not fulfilled any of the commitments that he made as presidential candidate. He has attempted to grab political power with his constitutional decree of the 22nd of November. And by doing that, he's tried to grab dictatorial powers. And then he also tried to impose a constitution that was not the result of a consensus process. So essentially, plus, of course, on top of this, you put a collapsing economy, and you put the fact that now most everybody you talk to in the street is fed up with him.
This is not the first time, in his tenure. I mean, there was a lot of calls for dismissal in so many different ways, even from more organized organizations. So what make them think this is a little bit different, beside the 15 million signature, which really a number seems like too high. I don't know how
they have offered to have the United Nations count the number of petitions for them. The petitions have been uploaded on iCloud and are safeguarded in the cloud over there somewhere.
So Ayatollah Google is having all the counts here.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So in any case, I think the issue here is that the ballot, one ballot is not democracy. And what people are arguing, yes, he won in this election, in this ballot, but since then, every single institution of the that was created has been deemed invalid, whether it's the parliament that was deemed invalid by the courts, the Shura Council, which is currently acting as the legislature, has also been deemed unconstitutional. The election law that was passed by the Shura Council to organize the next parliamentary election was deemed unconstitutional and sent back. And so right now we are in a process of creating democratic institutions from scratch. And just the fact that there was a presidential election a year ago doesn't mean that the person who won is imposed on the population for another 3 years. And right now, the people who have organized this process have assiduously made sure that it is nonviolent and that they're trying very, very hard to ensure that the demonstrations on the 30th of June are nonviolent. There's clearly going to be provocation and attempts by the other side to turn it into a violent campaign in order to discredit them. I hope that they manage, or at least that they try very hard to keep their supporters to non-violent and to keep them from engaging in any kind of violent activity, because I think they will lose legitimacy if you have major violence break out. And that's exactly what the Islamist forces want. They want to show that these guys are thugs and are out there to destroy the country.
So if this is a popular movement, a massive movement, so what is the thinking from Morsi and the other side? What are they thinking? Why do they think they can get away with this and they can survive wave after waves of protest? I mean, is there a strategy there of creating an environment by which there will be a violent confrontation and then it will be the final battle, so to speak?
I mean, I hope there isn't that kind of strategy. I suspect there may be. But the one thing that the accusation that they keep throwing out, besides the fact that they are thugs and that they are basically, people who are interested in chaos, the one accusations they've been throwing out is that they are apostates, they are kuffar.
Oppo.
So that basically anybody who is opposed to Morsi and wants to depose him is a kafir. And a lot of the Islamist leaders have thrown this accusation of these are the enemies of God and they should be fought as the enemies of God. And that's a well-worn trick that has been used, whether it's been used umpteen times in the last
Nobody
3 years.
takes this accusation serious, doesn't
Well,
it?
unfortunately, it is effective among certain illiterate and less educated people in the rural areas. When every one of the major political battles was turned as a battle between the people who are for God and the people who are against God. Uh,
The nature of struggle in Egypt now? What are the forces that are fighting? Are we talking about education versus non-educated, religious versus unreligious, or city versus rural? What's going on now?
Okay, the main divide is between people who are secularist and who don't believe that religion should have a main role in politics, who are religious but not who don't believe in the role of mixing religion and politics, versus people who believe there should be an Islamic state. That's the main divide. It happens to take on other dimensions like education and rural urban. So the greater the support for the people who believe in an Islamic state tends to be among less educated and among more rural-based people. So there was a opinion poll done only a few days ago that looked at support for Morsi, and in Cairo his support is down to 20%. While in the country as a whole, his support is under 40%.
is Morsi's government doing anything to legitimize their being in power? I mean, it seems like Quran. I hear the secular, the liberal, like Morsi, is not doing anything except going to praying and consolidate the Islamist power. Is he doing anything? Is he solving any problem? He has a government. People has the right to protest, but
That's right. And the government,
in the meantime, he needs to do something.
yeah, the government unfortunately has been particularly ineffective in solving people's problems. The economy is in a down tail. Basically, it's in a tailspin, trying to deal with the fact that the foreign exchange reserves have been completely have evaporated, and he's not able to conclude a deal with the IMF to be able to get support from the external world. The electricity, you're kidding. We were kidding today about the fact that electricity was cut off because of the storm in Minneapolis. This is a daily occurrence
Well,
here in Cairo.
God sent the storm. God with the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood
That's right.
penetrating our government.
Exactly. There are diesel shortages on a daily basis. So, they have been attempting to do very short-term measures. For instance, as you know, Ramadan is coming up very soon, and they've been trying to make sure that at least the basic foodstuffs are available for people to buy during Ramadan. So they've been buying. Government has been buying a lot of food and dumping it onto the markets in recent days to try and keep food prices stable. But inflation is very high because of the fact that the Egyptian pound has devalued. And of course, the employment situation is terrible because nobody is investing, there are no tourists. Now, with all this stuff going on, they do things that seem really foolish. So, for example, they go and appoint a fairly unknown guy to become the Minister of Culture. And the first thing that guy comes in, and he tries to fire all the top leadership of the Ministry of Culture, all people who have been very credible and very well known. So what happens is all the intellectuals and the artists and the writers in Egypt go and occupy the Ministry of Culture and prevent the minister from getting into his office, and basically have a sit-in for the past 10 days, and they're still there.
They will appoint a whole bunch of new governors, including 7 governors from the Muslim Brotherhood, which is their right. I don't see they're the party in power. They should have governors who are from their movement. But then they go and appoint somebody from the Jama'ah Islamiyya, which is the organization that organized the massacre of the tourists in Luxor in 1997, to be the governor of Luxor. And they take somebody who is a member of that organization.
Is he still a member? Is he still a member?
He's still a member. The organization has since forsworn violence, or at least that's what they say. But it has kept the name. The same people are in charge of the organization. They have forsworn violence. The guy is a member of the organization, and they make him the governor of Luxor, the guy responsible for promoting tourism in Luxor. So you can imagine the reaction of people in Luxor who make their living off tourism to this appointment. They are completely incensed, and they have gone to basically they have blocked him from entering the governor's building. They have blocked the streets in Luxor to show their protests, and the guy has not been able to get to his office. But just I can't imagine the person making that decision.
Let's talk about that. Who's making the decision? It seems like I don't believe that they are that naive or that dumb. I mean, there is something, a machine behind all this decision. I know when you hire somebody, and I think the West is making a big issue out of this because of the event and war on terrorism and all that. He has the right to hire. So as long as this guy is not legally bound to, I mean, he should be hired. We're talking about his competent now. Is he capable to do the job? But that's aside. The symbolism is the wrong decision.
Well, look, perceptions are very important.
It is very important.
And perceptions are extremely important. Even if the guy were extremely competent, which he's not, just the fact that you put, it's like basically getting someone who is responsible for destroying the Buddhas in Afghanistan and making him the Minister of Tourism in Afghanistan, right? I mean, it's the same sort of.
But we are catering to tourism as if this is what is this country is all about, is a place where Western
well,
can
the
go
reality.
and this is Egypt under the Brotherhood, and
Yes.
that they have the right to change the structure, the culture. What's wrong with having
No, but
tourism that best?
what they're saying is that they want tourism and they want to promote tourism in Luxor and they are for tourism. So they say one thing and do something which is
That
complete. If they
that
said
is,
they're against tourism, that's fine.
that's a
They would be.
great point, Doctor. That's directors. Well, this is exactly I'm taking on the secular and the liberal when they criticize Morsi. I don't know what the basis of criticism. When the guy goes secular and he wants to get loan and deal with the Americans and deal with the Israelis, oh, he is a traitor. The guy, they said that he cannot, he wouldn't deal with the Americans and the West. Now he's dealing. When he goes religious and hire a brotherhood, oh, he's gonna brotherhoodize. So what those people want? What
They
would they
want
want
him to
for
be
Morsi?
competent. They want him to be competent, full stop, and to be able to run the country properly. So far, he's made a complete mess of running the country, making one decision after the other that contradicts the other decision. One day appealing to the extremists and the Islamists, like the day he had the big rally in support of Syria, where he had in all the entire spectrum of the most extreme group in the country, the jihadis, rallying for him. And then the next day he goes and says, I want tourism and I want to deal with the West. I mean, it's the guy is not consistent. They have run the country in a very incompetent fashion, not solved any of the big problems that Egypt had, and in fact made the problems worse through their mistakes.
Okay.
So in fact, the reality is that they have proven to be completely inept at running.
Is 1 year enough to make that sweeping judgment on Morsi and his
Well,
party?
if you were living here and seeing what happens from a day-to-day basis, you would know that 1 year is more than enough. In fact, the past 2 weeks, there were enough mistakes being made. I mean, I didn't talk to you about the Minister of Culture, this guy who was appointed and in 1 week tried to remove all the leadership of the Minister of Culture on the claim that they are corrupt. Now the entire cultural apparatus, the artists, the writers, the theater people, again, are occupying his office and protesting against him. I mean, this guy was a complete unknown before he took that position. He was some kind of film editing professor in a technical college. And then he comes and claims that he wants to completely clean up the Minister of Culture overnight.
Not being known doesn't mean he's incompetent. But what I'm saying is, uh, it seems like this fight or this struggle is a struggle on what kind of Egypt do we want, right? And
Well, I wish it were. I wish it were about two coherent visions of what Egypt should be like, and the one group has a coherent vision and the other one has a counter vision. Unfortunately, what it is a struggle over that on the rhetorical level, but on the practical level, it is a group that is taking the country into the abyss. Basically, it's a slow downward decline into a worse and worse situation in a country that is already has enormous problems, and these people are not offering any potential answers or solutions to these problems. So it's not just a question about identity and ideology and vision. It's a question about day to day, the problems are getting worse. There's not going to be another opportunity to vote on their record. They're essentially going to eliminate that possibility, either through fraud or through simply delaying the elections indefinitely.
and if there is a fair election tomorrow, would they make it?
No,
Would he
absolutely
survive?
not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. In fact, there were some opinion polls just this past couple of weeks from a very reputable polling company, and they show that their support is well below 40%.
Okay. Uh, there is a demonstration all over the world. It's not Egypt based in Turkey and Brazil, and was in London, Greece, Spain, Occupy Wall Street here. How is it different in Egypt?
Well, I mean, in Egypt, it is a continuation of the revolution that occurred in January of 2011. People think of the revolution as being one single event or 11 days or 18 days. It's not. The revolution comes in waves, and there has been really no consolidation of the state since the revolution. And I think the people who undertook the revolution feel that it's been stolen away from them, and they're going back to the street to regain it. Now, if you remember back over all the major revolutions around the world, it took years for things to get back to normal.
How is the street different than January 21st? I know there is a Tamarod event on June 30th. I mean, is it Tamarod legal in Egypt now or what? Tamarod,
No, Tamarod is a movement, and they're basically collecting signatures on a petition. So they don't need to be a legal organization that's registered to have.
No, I understand that, but when you say we are a Tamarud, I think Tamarud rebellion is considered under the law is a violation
No,
of.
Tamarrud is a word, but all that they have been doing, the actual actions, have been legal actions of getting people to sign a petition and to call for a peaceful demonstration on the 30th of June. So the word tamarrud is a rhetorical word. It means insurrection, or it means uprising, but it's not.
And how is it different than January 25th? So what they are confident they can do at this time? This is not the first time they go to the street in the last
Well,
year.
January 25th was very successful. The only problem is that the transition process was screwed up, and it was captured by political groups that were not an integral part of the revolution. So I think what these people, the young people, are saying, this is our revolution. We're going to go back to the streets and basically recapture our revolution.
Do they have leaders? Do they have people follow, or is just still a grassroots movement?
Well, the reality is that the leadership of the opposition is trying to jump on their bandwagon. So you've got the political parties and the opposition are jumping on that bandwagon. But the reality is the opposition is still very disorganized and doesn't have clear leadership. So the one thing about Tamarrud is that they have said, okay, if the opposition is not able to organize itself, we're going to reach to the grassroots, and we're going to try and get to the base and get people mobilized. And that's what they have done. But I was just discussing that with some friends. There isn't really one person who can be put in as an alternative to Morsi right now from the side of the opposition.
What is the role of 30 years of Mubarak dictatorial period of what's going on in Egypt now?
Oh, the role is very important because essentially when you have a dictator for 30 years, it destroys any kind of political organization that is able to develop an alternative. So when there is nothing, when Mubarak really made sure that every type of secular opposition was dismantled, the only people he couldn't dismantle were the religious opposition, because they still had, they were able to organize in mosques, which the state under the authoritarian system did not have full control over. And so it's no coincidence that the only organized opposition to Mubarak was an Islamic and religious one. So now that there is a bit of a more open political space, these groups need time to organize. And while they're organizing, partly through actions like Tamarrud, they are not there yet.
Well, if Morsi is failing domestically, it seems like the West is still looking the other way. It seems like he's hitting the right tone with the Israelis, the Americans, the Brotherhood. I mean, the people in Palestine and Gaza and Europe. And how is his foreign policy? Is it different than? It seems like it's not any different than what Mubarak was doing.
No, Morsi basically calculated that he needs to get the support of the West, in particular of the US. And in order to get that support, he's going to be useful to the US in terms of creating peace with Israel, or at least stability on the borders with Israel by his influence over Hamas. And for that, the US sees him as useful. The US is not interested in democracy in Egypt, unfortunately. It's only interested in stability and interested in a secure border along the Israeli border. And Morsi, at least, is claiming to offer that. And I think
that the secular liberal in Egypt and the rest probably in Arab world, they start, when they talk about Islamism and Islam, they talk like the conservative movement in the West.
Well, in fact, if you listen to what the others, the Islamist side talk about the liberals, they sound also like the conservative right wing in the West. They're basically people who are atheists, they don't believe in God, they are immoral, etc., etc. So this is the result of polarization. When countries are polarized, you get people who use rhetoric that is absolutist, that is basically rejectionist of the other side. And unfortunately, that's what the US is increasingly moving towards.
Okay, well, I want to see in this with. Are you optimistic still, or what do you expect will happen on June 30th? What are the scenarios there?
It's really hard to know. I think there's going to be a very large showing of people in the streets on June 30th. I think it's going to be, there's going to be attempts to keep it peaceful and non-violent. However, it's going to be very hard to keep it that way. And I'm worried that it might decay into violence, at least at the edges. But my sense is that it's going to maybe last for about a week or 10 days, and then Ramadan is going to come and energies are going to drop and it's going to fizzle away.
Well, Dr. Assad, thank you so much. We really appreciate. Wish you well. And where are you going to be on January 30th?
On June 30th, I'll be in
June
Minneapolis.
30th. You're going to
I'll
be
be
where?
in Minneapolis.
Oh, smart guy.
Yes.
Well, thank you. We welcome you. We'll talk to you when you come back. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
very
Good
good.
luck with your IDs.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.